Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by David to discuss the best captaincy options for Game Week 22. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Yeah, refreshed from a weekend of no Fantasy Premier League. We had the FA Cup, so I was able to, largely, ignore having to make any tough decisions on a Saturday, which was nice, and just enjoy some football for a change. So I'm refreshed and ready for the first game week, or full, proper, not involved in the Christmas period, just normal week of 2019.
It is. We're back to normal. So no rotate. Well, I say no rotation. You never know. But the threat of rotation diminishes. But
Absolutely.
This week, in terms of the captaincy, I don't think this is such a clear-cut week. I was doing some research, and we're going to discuss it more over the next 20 minutes or so. But there isn't really a particular player that really stands out. But maybe by the end we'll come to some kind of conclusion. So first of all, a lot of people are going to be wanting to captain this man, Mohamed Salah. He has been in excellent form over Christmas, really since he came on as a sub against Burnley and then came back again the following game week with a hat-trick did very well against Bournemouth. But many were back in, but he's away to Brighton. But can the Seagulls' home form thwart the Liverpool winger? What do you think about Salah as a captaincy option?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Loads of people are going to be flocking to him, and currently that includes me. He's currently my captain for now, but of course, plenty can change in the next couple of days with the research and the things that we're going to do. If we're going to captain him this week, it's going to be because we trust him more than the fixture. We did some research recently into trying to find out who the best premium options are based off individual underlying data. And, Salah came out in a very strong position. His expected goal involvement over the previous 6 game weeks was considerably higher than most of the other premium midfield options, better than most of the premium striker options. So if we're looking for the in-form man in the league right now, it has to be him. So, that's a big factor. A lot of people are going to be auto-captaining him, which actually might be successful because I think he is the kind of player that can be fixture-proof. But, of course, as you've just mentioned there, Brighton recently, when you look at we always like to, look at the opposition data. It's not as, it's not as bad as we'd like it to be ahead of them facing Salah. So, in the last 4 game weeks, goal attempts in the box conceded is really low. It's actually the exact same number as Liverpool. It's 24, which is not what you want to see at all because Liverpool have an incredible defence. The only 2 teams that have conceded fewer chances in the box than Brighton is Man City and Chelsea. So they're in a really nice area of the table to suggest that they could make things really, really difficult for Salah in Game Week 22.
Yeah, I was looking a bit broader period, but looking specifically at that home defence, because traditionally over the last season or 2, Brighton have been much better at home, and I think that here's some stats on the last 6 away, and this is the picture it creates. Really, they've conceded just 7 big chances. That's joint second best with Liverpool and Crystal Palace. They've conceded just 5 times, and that's the joint 4th best. This is the 6 home fixtures. But they have conceded 47 shots in the box over that time. And that's actually the 5th worst. So basically what the picture is you've got Duncan Duffy there as their centre-backs and their defence. And then you've got the likes of, say, Stevens in kind of flanking in that defensive midfield role, kind of offering further protection as well. So they are conceding a lot of shots and a lot of close-range efforts, but they're very good at dealing with them. So they concede a lot of shots, but they deal with them. So very few of the shots conceded considered kind of big chances. But Salah has scored in 5 of his last 6 road trips, so 3. Definitely against Bournemouth there. Can't ignore that. And that's joint top with Kane. He's also had 16 goal attempts. And he's firing close range effort every 31 minutes, which is very good. So as you said, he is the form player, really, form midfielder. The other thing I factor in is that loss to City and the fact that they're going to rotate heavily in the FA Cup. This is being recorded before the FA Cup match. I'm expecting a lot of rotation. I'm probably expecting Salah not to start. So I think they're going to be fresh and they're going to be really hungry to go for it. So the Chelsea result as well. When Chelsea went to Brighton, they did well. Hazard did well as a captaincy option as well. I just think when you factor those things, Salah's still a good option, but yeah, the stats there, they do paint that picture with Brighton, and as you said, their defence is good, and especially at home.
Yeah, I think it's just a gut call in terms of you've got to make a decision about what you think is going to give effectively, because something has to. Either Salah has to, his form has to take a bit of a dip because of the Brighton defence, or the Brighton defence gets breached because Salah's just in such good form. And I'm inclined to go with the latter there, and I think a lot of other people will be as well. It's just when those two particular stats knock against each other, and you've got this picture of an immovable object against unstoppable force, one of them has to give. Yeah. So you just got to choose. With Salah, you've got to make a decision about can he overcome the defensive data that he's faced with this week. Yeah,
it's Salah v Duncan Duffy. Who will win? Yeah. A lot of people will say Salah. Well, let's see. So yeah, a few caveats there. Quite like Salah, but Hazard. Let's have a look at Hazard next. So I think he's got a really great fixture. And last time I said someone had a great fixture at home to Newcastle, it was Salah himself, and he did very well, and Liverpool did well, because people looked at Newcastle not conceding much away and forgot that basically most of the teams they were playing were absolutely god awful. So when they actually come across a good team away from home, they crumble. And Newcastle, it's traditional crumble time for them as well. It's a transfer market, and Mike Ashley's not spending much on them, so there's not much room for improvement. What do we think about Hazard at home to Newcastle? Looks good.
Yeah, no, I really like the look of this one. As you've already mentioned, as we've covered before, Newcastle do tend to crumble away from home against the bigger teams. Hazard, despite the fact that he's blanked in the last 2 game weeks, has got underlying statistics that make me want to sign him right now, even though I don't, even in spite of those blanks. So with that in mind, that's why I think he's a strong captain candidate this week. The underlying data is still very good, and you can see a little bit more of that in terms of how he compares with other premium options, kind of over the last 6 game weeks in the premium article we did a couple of days ago. Expected goal involvement last week's game was a 4.25. Which is very nice. The only thing with Hazard is, of course, is that while the underlying data has been good, he has blanked in those 2 games, which probably, to be honest, it probably means that people are going to get rid of him and then he'll score a hat-trick against Newcastle. But he hasn't actually scored a home goal in the Premier League since like game week 7, and obviously he's had a lot of assists in that time. But there's certainly other bits about Hazard that kind of. I always say that Hazard, I'm uncomfortable captaining him, especially at home against teams that Chelsea really should beat. It's kind of a weird one, isn't it? Like he tends to actually do better away from home. I can think of some of the times that I captained in this year were away games where he got goal and assist, etc. So it's a frustrating one with Hazard because the data's there, looks very nice, but at the same time, the staple that you want from a captain candidate is when they're at home against a naff team, they're regularly getting big points, but without a goal at home against they've played so many appealing fixtures over that period and he hasn't scored, kind of just puts you off a bit. I guess it's just kind of that niggling feeling at the back of your mind.
What you're trying to say is he's a troll, isn't he? He's an FPL troll. I agree. And I think the last game against Southampton will put people off, you're right, and I think it's a psychological thing there. I actually think Hazard is probably, on paper, the best option. My one problem is if Morata's playing. Now, they've got injuries up front. The picture we got up on the screen, the latest on the Chelsea injury situation, Hazard gets an extended run out. That's the headline there. So basically, he didn't even get a rest there because even the likes of Loftus-Cheek are getting injured. So they're down to the bare bones there. Hazard has to play really on the wing. They've gone from having quite a lot of options there to hardly any. And that means that Morata, since Giroud's out, is likely to start in a central role. And we know this season, Morata is kryptonite to Hazard's attacking returns. He will absolutely do everything he can. So I had a look at that Southampton match because I was really worried as a non-Hazard owner. And Hazard there, he's top for Chelsea for shots, chances, and goal, and shots in the box as well in that match. He was the attacking threat. So Morata killed it, just killed it stone dead. And so if I see Morata on the bench for that game and Hazard up front, or even if Hazard's up front, which he probably would be, wow, I'm scared. But if I see Morata there, I can relax, make myself a cup of tea, and just ignore that game and have a look at his 2 to 3 points at the end of it. Yeah, Man City, another team that people psychologically will put off over Christmas. So if we did a while you were away over at Christmas, did a video with Neil, looking at City with Fernandinho in the side and without Fernandinho in the side, and it was quite startling. So Fernandinho was out with an injury for a couple of games, and the attacking threat the attacking threat completely halved for the whole City squad. It just makes them tick, and their chance of conceding goals just completely doubled. And we saw that in the main games. They were just awful, really. Some terrible teams really were beating them. Palace, as a Brighton fan, I have to say that about Palace, but Palace are actually quite good at the moment. What do we think about City assets? Because as we saw against Liverpool, Fernandinho's back. Hey, Super City are back. So what do you think about City assets against Wolves?
Yes, you're right. There's going to be a psychological angle on this for most people. I mean, a lot of people sold their Man City assets. So, I mean, Sterling and Sané were two of the top three most sold players ahead of Game Week 21. And, of course, they both ended up with attacking returns. There'll be people who'll be put off captaining them if they still own them. And actually, I think I may be one of them. And it's actually slightly less to do with Man City and slightly more to do with Wolves. Because, I mean, you're right. Man City are going to be better now they've got Fernandinho back. Some of the analysis we did of people like Sané and Sterling, they didn't really compare too favourably for attacking stuff over Christmas. Sané and Sterling were still below the likes of Pogba, Hazard and Salah for minutes per shot in the box, that sort of thing. So for me, there's a slight element of doubt about some of those Man City players. But yeah, Wolves away from home, they're weirdly so much better defensively away from home than they are at home. And basically, the only teams that have conceded fewer goals than them away from home are Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man City. And they're just very good at frustrating people when they're the away team. And of course, we've seen that they've gone toe to toe with Man City twice over the last year, or three times, I should say, because of the League Cup last year, and really caused them problems. And obviously, they held them to that draw at Molineux at the start of the season. Obviously, lots of things have changed since then. But something about Wolves just. A home fixture against Wolves, I feel like, is never an easy fixture for anybody.
It's not, is it? And
as we
saw, 3-1 they beat Spurs. I was looking into some other against kind of so-called top teams. So this is a psychological thing about them. 1-1 against Arsenal, 1-1 against Manchester United. In fact, they have not conceded more than one goal away against these top sides this season so far. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm happy to own Sané, but I'm not going to captain him, and I say exactly the same if I was a Sterling owner and an Aguero owner as well. I think they'll score, but I don't think they're going to score a lot. Okay, here's a name. Here's a player that neither of us own, and we were talking before we came on air. We're both actually quite scared of this week, Aubameyang. I think, along with Hazard, on paper, he is a really great option. Well, I mean, you've already told me that, so just repeat the same thing. What do you think about Aubameyang as a captaincy option away to West Ham?
Yeah, well, at this initial stage, I actually think Aubameyang is the best option this week. He's got everything that you need in a perfect captain, in that he is in form himself. He's scored in 3 of his last 4 games. The only one that he didn't score in was away at Liverpool, but hey, nobody scores at Liverpool, really. So that shouldn't really put you off. He was given a rest in that game because Emery was like, well, we've kind of been thrashed here, so why bother wasting Aubameyang? So, and he seems to be just playing anyway. He seems to be playing all the time. He's the number one forward. Statistically, he looks great as well. So when we compared the premium forwards over the Christmas period and basically for the entirety of December, Aubameyang is actually, in my opinion, in a better place than Kane now. So he's got better minutes per shot in the box than him, every 26.1 to every Kane's 37.8. So, if we've been sort of singing Kane's praises from an underlying perspective recently, we should now be saying Aubameyang is in the same sort of place. And the really interesting thing about him is he's so due more returns because he's missed a few chances, admittedly, but basically he's underperforming compared to his expected goal involvement over the last six game week. So his expected goal involvement of 6.44, he was minus 1.44 under that when you look at the delta. So there is more to come from him as a player. That's just, I think you can even tell that just from an eye test without looking at the data, that he is getting in front of goal, he is getting chances. Yes, he's missing a few sitters, but he's a high quality player and eventually they will be ironed out. Then you look at the opposition and it's West Ham, and they have one clean sheet at home this season. That was back in game week 6 against Chelsea. They've since then, I think they played 8 home games. They conceded 15 goals in those games. That's an average of about 1.8 per game, something like that. There's just no chance West Ham are keeping a clean sheet here. I just don't trust their defence. And then just the real, just to kind of finish it all off, when you look at how the West Ham are actually doing in terms of, shots conceded, it all adds up. Basically they've allowed 36 shots in the box in the last 4 game weeks. Only 4 teams are worse than that: Southampton, Huddersfield, Watford and Cardiff. So they're still in that part of the table that me and you tend to go and look at as the whipping boys category.
Yes.
Not describing them as whipping boys as such for any angry West Ham fans out there. But
we got into trouble because we said that Watford were whipping boys just before
and
they
then they conceded
just before they got whipped. So baby, there is something in this as well.
Yeah. But certainly, they're in that category of the table where they always look like they could concede 2 to 3 goals per game. Yeah. So there's just absolutely nothing about Aubameyang that makes me go, I'm not sure. Like with Salah, it's the Brighton aspect. With Hazard, it's the Hazard aspect of I don't trust him as an individual. With Man City, it's Wolves. But with Aubameyang, there's nothing. Players in form and the team he's playing against can't defend. So cut and dry for me.
This is powerful. Well, I've got just to add to that. So I did a little bit of research. I mean, that's powerful stuff you just said there. But Aubameyang's away from, so his last 6 road trips. So I was looking at those, and he's created 8 big chances, and that's joint top. Weirdly, with Morata. So I didn't look into big chances missed, sadly. So Morata, I'm expecting to be quite high on that. And 15 goal attempts over that period. That's 1 less than Salah. It's actually the 10th best. So, it's still amongst the top 10. But he doesn't need a lot of shots, so that's the thing about him. It's the quality of the chances. So with Aubameyang, you've really got to look at those big chances. If he's high for that away from home, then that's great, because he's very, very accurate as well. So he's had 11 shots in the box. That's 1 every 46 minutes. So that's on a par with, say, Willian, but nowhere near Kane and Salah. They're kind of around the 30, 25 minute mark there for every shot in the box. So once again, that paints the picture of Aubameyang, really. Quality shots. If he gets those quality shots, he'll score from them. And as you said there, West Ham, well, I can't see them keeping him out as well. So yeah, so far I think we're going for Aubameyang as the key ones. But are there any other options as well? Looking at the fixtures, what about Spurs against Manchester United? Are we overlooking that tough to call tie?
Yes. Well, it's tough to call, so therefore I think by not looking at it, I don't think we're really overlooking it. I think we're rightfully disregarding it, which I think is something that we've both agreed on in these videos we've done this year, and it's largely worked out for us. We've largely avoided these big fixtures, and we've been fairly successful with our captains. But it is worth pointing out that there are players in form coming into this game. So Pogba and Rashford are both the 2 top options for shots on target last 4 game weeks. They've both got 10 each. And nobody else is higher than that. Obviously Kane is overperforming against his underlying data according to expected data, which is frustrating for me as a Kane owner because I'm a little bit worried about him. A game against Man United kind of makes me think that's going to be a game where he's not going to do very much. But also just going back to those Man United options, they look very good, but Spurs' defence has been statistically quite nice over the last couple of game weeks. So yeah, it's a case of we've got some form players going up against teams that aren't looking like they could get thrashed. So really, it's unpredictable, and I don't want to go anywhere near this fixture at all. Especially when I know that there's obviously caveats with a lot of the options we talked about, like with Salah and Hazard, but there's just a lot more to be sure about with those guys than with Kane or Pogba or Son or Rashford or all that sort. I couldn't call that game.
Yeah,
so I'm just not going to go anywhere near with the captaincy.
With Kane, I think what you are going to get is a goal or an assist. You're going to get, because he's actually in his last 10 starts, he's delivered an attacking return. So you're going to get some points. I think, and Manchester United, are still a bit sketchy at the back. So I think you'll get a return. But I think you're right. It's tough to call that. And so Kane at home, last 6 home matches had 14 shots. So last 6 away matches 28. So he's actually, Kane is a better player away from home. They seem to be better. I don't know whether Spurs are better. He's better, but something's going on there. And at home, they're just not quite as good as they are away. So and United aren't keeping those clean sheets as well. So I think it all points to a kind of small return. And I think Rashford and Pogba, if you're going to be backing a Manchester United player, they're the men most likely. The last 6 home matches for Spurs, they've conceded 54 shots in the box. That's joint third worst. They've also conceded 6 goals and 11 big chances. So once again, I think they're going to concede as well. As there could be a haul for someone in this game, but as you said, it's too tough to call, I think. What about elsewhere? We've got a few other look quite good options here. Richarlison against Bournemouth appeals to me. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I actually, when I set my my bus team when the deadline for Gameweek 21 had just passed and the game reloaded, I actually put my captaincy on Richarlison straight away because I was like, oh yeah, that looks nice, and also because I just wasn't sure, Brighton away for Salah. And I think I've moved him off it now. It only lasted a day or so because it just felt quite nice to just be like, yeah, I'm going to captain someone different. And then I kind of sort of, I don't want to say came to my senses because I think he'll get something, but I don't want to rely on Richarlison. So like Bournemouth defence, it's conceding slightly fewer shots than it was several weeks ago, but they're still conceding fairly high number of high quality chances. So it's 11 big chances conceded in the last 4 game weeks. Only 3 teams have worse than that. And of course, FA Cup game against, I know it's only the FA Cup, but they largely played a lot of their key defenders in that game against a kind of rotated Brighton team and still lost 3-1, and were just so hopelessly terrible at organisation, concentration, and everything you need to be able to keep teams out. They're just incapable of doing. So I do think Everton will do well, but just Richarlison feels like it's make or break for him. His accuracy is starting to drop off now. So 11 shots, 10 in the box, only 3 on target last 4 game weeks, and I don't quite trust him. But at the same time, like I said, Bournemouth, I think they'll concede heavily here. So maybe worth considering if you're looking for something really differential. But I think last season has showed us, because I did this. I had Richarlison as my captain in a nice looking fixture somewhere near the beginning of last season, and I fell flat on my face.
Yeah, I was looking, as a non-Richarlison owner, I was looking for some crumbs of comfort, and I kind of got some, but not on others.
Yeah,
so
there's a few.
I was looking at the last 2 game weeks, so he's blanked the last 2 game weeks, played 90 minutes against Brighton and Leicester. So these are games where he could have scored, where they're scoreable, but I was hoping to see his stats fall off a cliff, but they weren't. In fact, he's up in terms of goal attempts than his season average before that. So he's averaging a 2.4 shots a match in the first 19 game weeks of the season, and in those 2 where he blanked, he was actually 3.5 a match. So he was actually up. But as you said, his shot accuracy has gone down, and the number of chances had that are considered big by Opta are down as well. So he's almost reverting to what he was last season. Loads and loads of shots, and just can't score straight at the goalkeeper or over. So yeah, I don't know. The only other options I can think of captaincy wise, West Ham, Arsenal's defence. We talk about West Ham's awful defence. Well, let's have Arsenal's have got an awful defence as well. Once again, more injuries there. Arnautovic and Anderson are in form, as they showed over Christmas, although Arnautovic is possibly carrying an injury.
That's just what's new, eh? Yeah. That's the thing. We're straight back to that.
If I had Arnautovic, on paper he's actually quite good, but unfortunately, because his legs are actually made of paper as well, his back in his case, I think he's nice to own, but perhaps nice to captain. Just wanted to mention one final thing. We have a membership offer now. So membership to Fantasy Football Scout, which is basically the place where we have been reeling off all of these stats and looking at comparison tools and looking at the season ticker and all of these types of things. So it usually costs £15 a year, but because we're a bit over halfway through the season, that's been reduced to £10 there. So just wanted to give that a quick mention. But for now, David, thanks for joining me, and good luck with the game week.
Cheers, and to you as well.